Hear and see me. I'm going to assume there's a little bit of delay on the Discord here. I'm Jonathan Grow, Director of Community. I have with me Jeff Hunter, who has been a member of Ninja for quite a while now. Jeff has been in on the sales engineering team. He's actually going to be doing more in lines with some marketing. You're going to be seeing Jeff some more, which I'm super excited about. Jeff, really good to see you.
Great to see you too, Jonathan, and happy to hopefully be doing many more webinars kind of like this in the future.
Absolutely. I'm going to also disconnect myself from Discord. There we go. Okay. Thank you everybody for being with us. So we're trying out Restream, and we are if you're in Discord and if you're noticing any kind of lag or anything like that, head over to our YouTube. That might be another way to check it out. You should be able to go in and you can comment and everything there. We're trying this for the first time, so please bear with us. But I'm going to try posting some comments. We should be able to see all your comments from Discord and if you're over on YouTube as well. If that's not the case, I'm sure Robin's going to let us know. But definitely excited to give this a whirl, and I think it's going to end up better in a few ways after we get some of these wrinkles out. We're going to have recordings very quickly. You'll be able to go back on YouTube and see all the comments. I mean, that's something that we were losing before. You'd see the recording, but you wouldn't get to see all the great contributions that everyone in the audience was making via the chat. And so that's something that I think we're going to be able to resolve here. So thanks for bearing with us while we try out something new. Speaking of something new, it's not just the software that we're using in the platform. It's also this is a new type of series that we're hoping to kick off and do quite a bit of, and definitely want your input on what topics we should be covering, how we can do things better, things we shouldn't do. But for this first one in this series that we're calling Like a Ninja, we're going to be covering how to deploy software like a ninja. And we've got the ninja himself, Jeff Hunter. Jeff, you know Ninja in and out. I mean, your job was basically doing demos and walking through use cases day in and day out. So you're a great person to get the series kicked off. That's your topic. You're going to be walking through how to deploy software. I don't know if you want to tee it up anymore. Before you do, I just wanted to say, yeah, Jeremy's saying show Wingate. If you do have any questions in the audience, don't wait. Don't be shy. I know that you won't. Jump in. Let us know. Jeff will respond to things. And then stick around towards the end, too, after Jeff's done, because we'd love to get some feedback and do a quick show of hands for some topics that you think would be good to cover next. With that, though, Jeff, I'll let you take it over.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And hopefully everybody is able to see it right about now. All right, that looks good. We'll go with that. Just as a quick note here, I am operating in a Canadian instance of Ninja, which means that I am actually on the new 5.7 release that is going to be coming out in North America, I believe, next week. That's a tentative date, so please don't yell at me if it slips. But in case you see things that don't quite look like what you might see in your own environment, if you're in the EU or if you're in a North American instance, that's why. It's because I'm a little bit early on the release cadence relative to the rest of the US. With that sort of table setting out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about deploying software through Ninja. Now, the first step of deploying software through Ninja is a fairly obvious one. You have to get your installers into the Ninja platform. Last year, we redeveloped this. And so now there's a centralized spot where you can upload everything and then reference it throughout the platform. And you'll see all the various ways we're going to reference that software a little bit later in the webinar. We'll go into the automation library here. In the top right, we have an option here to add in scripts. This could be custom scripts that you've created or somebody else has created. It might also be from the template library, which I would highly encourage everybody to keep an eye on. This is always getting updates, new scripts. The scripts are being updated in order to be more effective and more streamlined and easy to use. But the topic of today's conversation is more along the lines of installing applications. So let's go ahead and upload an app automation here. Now, in this case, I'm going to choose something very simple. I'm going to use Google Chrome, a very common application that you might need to push out to everybody. You'll see here we have the option to select the operating system. Do you want to do this on a Windows or do you want to do this on a Mac devices? Obviously, you're going to be needing different installers for those. For Windows, it's going to be an MSI or an EXE. For Mac, it's going to be a DMG or a PKG. I'm going to focus primarily on Windows right now. So we'll pick a Windows operating system. The architecture is not dependent for this particular installer that I'm using. So I can go ahead and use all, but if you were deploying separate 32-bit versus 64-bit, you can go ahead and make that selection here, which means that it's not going to run inadvertently on any systems that aren't that particular architecture. So if it's not a 32-bit system and you have a 32-bit installer selected here, it's not going to run. So you're not going to have it inadvertently installed on the wrong system. Now, again, in this case, it's not relevant because the installer I'm using is going to install in the proper context, regardless of 32 or 64-bit. I then have the option to either upload the installer or reference a URL. In this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and just use the installer that comes from Google. I'm going to upload it on my own. Go ahead and select this here. And then right there, you can see I have my standalone enterprise installer. Now it's not actually uploading now. I have to go ahead and submit first. And I'm probably going to have to authenticate for this to actually get uploaded. My next selection here is going to be my categories. So within Ninja, you have the concept of categories as it relates to scripts. A script has to belong to at least one category. It can belong to multiple categories. And where that really becomes useful for you in practicality is the user permissions that Ninja offers allows you to control who can see and do what. So for example, if I place this particular installer in the uncategorized category, and if I have somebody who does not have explicit access to run scripts from that category, well, they're not even going to see it. To them, it won't even exist. So if there are sensitive applications that you want to make available only to higher level personnel, you can absolutely do that using Ninja.
And hey, Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've got some comments. Again, yeah, just trying to figure out the right configurations and everything for screen sharing and what's the most visible. Is there any way you can zoom in a little bit?
A little bit better.
All right. And we'll give folks, there'll be a little bit of a delay, but yeah, if everything except the shared screen. Okay, we'll try that. Yeah, and YouTube as well. Well, anyway, we'll try to figure this out. Let's see. I would say, Jeff, go ahead and before you do, actually, one quick question. Will there be installation for Linux planned?
I don't know if that's something that's currently in the cards.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll say nothing imminent right now on Linux install application upgrades.
Okay. I'm going to try, and again, thanks for bearing with us, everybody. I'm going to pull myself out here, and then Jeff, I'm going to try to toggle off your better than before. Okay, well, we're getting somewhere. I'm going to pull your image off too, and we should still be able to see your screen and hear you.
Sounds good. All right. Hopefully I am going to disappear here from the main feed. I'll disable my camera real quick to see if that'll get rid of me from the broadcast. Nope, just a black box. All right, we'll go ahead and continue on. Hopefully this
just go
is
ahead.
easy to see.
Give it a shot.
Please let me know in the chat if you need me to do another zoom in. I don't think I can do more than just another zoom in. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to use this very well. But if you want me to zoom in again, just go ahead and let me know in the chat. So after our categories, we have the option to select what user context we are going to run this installer. Now our default selection here is going to be system. So That works perfectly fine in most cases. There are perhaps some instances in which an application needs to be installed in a user context. And so we could go ahead and instead run this as the current logged on user. And then, of course, you also have the option to run using local or domain admin credentials that you're setting on a per organization level, which means it's nice to just select this option here and it'll use whatever the local admin is for that particular customer. That way, there's no cross pollination of credentials across devices that shouldn't be receiving those creds. And then finally, at the bottom here, all right, let me go ahead and make it a little bit bigger again. Finally, at the bottom here, we have what I will say is probably the single most important uh, data field that you're going to enter in data into in this install application section. Even though it says optional here, the parameters in most cases are going to be required in order to successfully install the application. Now, on a Windows machine, you're going to have two options for installers, either an MSI or an EXE. An MSI is a Microsoft standard installer, uh, and that means it's generally more consistent across applications. They support the same parameters or the same switches. And so in the case of an MSI, Ninja will actually automatically attach a /qn parameter. And what that means for most MSIs is that it's going to install silently. All the wizard prompts that you see when you normally install an application, those just get bypassed. And that's really important because if you're running something as system and you don't enter the parameters for, say, an EXE, which tends to be much less standardized, well, the EXE is going to run and then it's going to hang and it's not going to do anything else because it's waiting for user input. And the user themselves is not going to see anything at the actual screen because you're running in a system context, which is running in the background and not going to be visible to the end user in terms of their display. So very, very important to add the parameters here. Like I said, an executable, there are no parameters whatsoever attached. So you need to go ahead and research the proper parameters for that to install successfully. I've seen /s uppercase, /s lowercase, /silent. In fact, while doing some research for this webinar, one of the applications that I'll demonstrate uses both silent and /very silent, which seems kind of reductive, I'll say. But a good rule of thumb, Google Silent Install HQ, I believe, is also a good resource for any um, applications where you can't find the quiet or silent install parameters. So highly recommend taking a look there or at the documentation for command line installation for the application in question. Most developers have pretty good documentation on that. Now, we're not done here because there are some additional settings. At the top here, we can see we have helper files. Now, again, this is not a required setting in most cases, but occasionally you will run into a situation where the application that you're deploying is not self-contained. So a lot of installers, like, for example, Google Chrome, you don't need anything else to install it. You just need the MSI. However, there are other applications that might require additional files in order to successfully install. Can't think of any examples off the top of my head on this, but a lot of the times they have um, uh, maybe a license key file or some particular JSON file that needs to be in the same directory as the installer when it's ran. Um, I think MDT, MST files, they're sort of going away from my understanding, but still certainly valid use cases for deploying where you might need to use those. And so we can go ahead and upload up to 5 of those, up to 100 megabytes each in the helper file section. Now, the icon here, this is purely for aesthetic pleasingness to your eye inside of the Ninja web app. This does not impact anything about how the actual installer on the endpoint runs. So it's not going to control what the desktop icon is for Google Chrome. On the end user's machine, it is just an option for me to see an icon inside of Ninja to make it a little bit more nice to look at. And then finally below that, we have the pre and post script functionality. You might need to do a little bit of table setting prior to installing the application to make sure that it's going to work properly. And then obviously after we do the installation, you might want to do some sort of check or confirmation or otherwise clean up after yourself to make sure that everything on the machine is ready to accept a new installation in the future. A quick note on this, Prescript right here, This does not have any impact on the installer running. So if you throw a terminating error in a PowerShell script prior to the installer running, that has no impact on the installer running. If you fail in the pre-script, the installer is still going to run. However, if your installer itself fails, the postscript is not going to run.
Jeff, quick question. Can we use
Mhm.
custom fields here at all?
We cannot. That is absolutely on our radar. I think we understand that would be tremendously useful to everybody, and I'm optimistic that we'll see that this year. But I don't think we have a firm timeline on incorporating custom fields into the parameters for an installation, which we do see used quite commonly. Using custom PowerShell scripts to reference a custom field to insert some sort of variable or parameter. For example, like a tokenized installer, you might want to store that token in a custom field so that the uh, uh, data is accessible to the device when it's running the PowerShell script. So we plan to incorporate that type of workflow into the install applications feature here. It's just not roadmapped quite yet, or not. There's no firm timeline on it, I should say.
So we can bug Steven, Scott, Gavin, annoy them. Um, here's a question. Jeff is going to remain mute on that one. Okay, so
Actually,
this is consecrated
uh,
flag. Yeah.
we cannot customize it to fail if the pre-script fails, unfortunately. So they're just going to be completely independent of each other for now. Off the top of my head, I won't make this some sort of recommendation that you should do, but off the top of my head, in theory, you could say if the pre-script fails, I want to go ahead and delete the actual installer inside of the program data folder where the Ninja RMM agent stuff gets downloaded to. So in theory, you could do something like that, but I won't pretend that that's something that's going to be supported by Ninja.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So now we actually have an installer. I'm not going to make you watch me authenticate and have that upload since we are on somewhat of a schedule here. But you can see I've uploaded a few different installers. We have a Slack installer here. We have Audacity, the very silent parameter here. And then we also have Google Chrome. So let's talk about, now that we've gotten this data inside of Ninja, how do we actually use it? And so let's go back to the main dashboard here. I will go down maybe to this device here. And the first way we could use an installer is essentially just deploy it. We just want to go ahead and run an installer on demand. And so we'll go to the play button here, and you'll see that we have a couple different options for running an automation. It could be a custom script. It could be a native script that we include out of the box. Obviously, in this case, it is going to be our install application that I uploaded earlier. And so we can go ahead and select that. We see those same options that we saw. And I can go ahead and just deploy Google Chrome. Now, in this case, I've added in the /qn parameter to be something that I can select when I go to run this. Like I said, in this case, I know that this is an MSI. I know that Ninja is going to automatically attach a /qn parameter. So I don't necessarily need to do that in this case, but keep in mind if this was an exe installer, you would need to go ahead and select a parameter because otherwise it is not going to complete in all likelihood. So I will not select a parameter in this case just because it's not really necessary. And so I can go ahead and run there. And so now the process will kick off. The installer is going to be downloaded locally to the endpoint. Once that download has completed, Ninja is then going to go ahead and execute it using an MSI exec command, and it's going to attach a variety of parameters. One of those is /qn, but another one is a /log file, so that if there are issues with the installation, there is going to be a local log file that you can go ahead and reference. And you can see here that we actually had a failure here for why this did not work. And so right there, you can see where that log file is. I could then use the file transfer functionality within Ninja to pull that back so I can find out why this failed. In this case, I'm assuming, in all likelihood, it's because Google Chrome's already installed. Let's go ahead and, yep, I can see right there that Google Chrome's already installed on this machine. So I did a poor job of selecting a test machine here. And that actually is a good way to segue to our next method of pushing out installer, which is doing the exact same thing, just doing it at scale, doing it across a lot of different devices. So earlier I went to one device, I could install on just that one device, but now I want to go ahead and find machines that do not have Google Chrome, and I can deploy en masse. And so in this case, I'm going to use the filters at the very top here. I'm going to select all my Windows workstations. So just desktops, just laptops, don't really care about servers. I'm going to look for a status of being up, so online and connected to Ninja. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and use a software inventory filter here to find where Google Chrome is not contained. So this means Google Chrome is not detected as being installed on the machine. And I'll say that I really don't care about any, I care about any version of the software. It does not have to be all particular versions. I can go ahead and search for Google Chrome here. Right there, I'll select that. And so I can see right here we have 10 machines. I guess I picked one of the few that actually had Google Chrome installed. But I can see the 10 machines that do not have Google Chrome. And so in this case, I could select all. I could go ahead and run an automation, and just execute this at scale across my entire environment. So now we've seen two ways. We've got ad hoc one-time deployment on a single device, and we've got ad hoc one-time deployment on multiple devices. Now, these are button presses. Essentially, a human being has to press a button, or in this case, click a mouse, in order for something to actually happen. Now let's go ahead and move into the realm of automation. How do we make this happen on kind of a set and forget basis so that it takes human error, sort of a human process, out of the equation? And that way it'll be more reliable. And so in this case, I'm going to kind of retain the same features and the same searches that I have at the very top here. I'm just going to go ahead and save this as a device group. And so in this case, I'll say does not have Chrome. I'll say WS for workstations there. Now, when I save that, this is now something that I can reference frequently. So if I hit the star button right next to the title there, this is going to be something that is saved in my favorites on the left-hand side, and I can click this to load it up from pretty much anywhere on the dashboard. You know, if I go into the administration section here, I can pop that open, say, hey, who doesn't have Google Chrome? And I'll see this list. This is not a static list. It's not going to be these 10 machines in perpetuity for the rest of time. It's a dynamic group. And so as there's changes in state on the device, we'll see that reflected here. Meaning as we deploy Google Chrome to these machines, we're going to see them automatically drop out of this list. There's nothing that you need to do. Anytime we hit refresh up here, or anytime we go into the devices menu and freshly load up the group, this is going to reflect the current state of devices meeting this particular search. So of course, as Chrome gets installed, you'll see them drop out of this list, but another one of our statuses here is it online? So as the device goes offline, it'll also disappear out of this group. Now, this is informational, very useful from an informational perspective, but we really want to automate this from start to finish. And so we'll go to the administration section on the left-hand side. Oh, I see a question. What makes that dynamic? Sort of the nature of the machines being moved in and out of the group based off of the search filters is what makes that dynamic. So like I said, if we have a device that goes offline, it automatically is removed from that search. That's kind of the dynamic element, as opposed to statically targeting all of our devices like so, where I could go ahead and say, well, I want this machine and I want this machine, and I want to create a scheduled task that targets those two machines indefinitely until I manually tell it to stop. And so the dynamic option allows you to kind of manage that. Yeah, any group is dynamic. And that allows us to go ahead and use tasks to target those dynamic groups. And we'll see right here, we have a new task that we can create. I can go ahead and use that Google Chrome installer that we keep seeing here. Name this install Chrome. You do want to leave the allow groups option here checked. Because this is what gives us that dynamic element to run the automation across. We can go ahead and select our recurring schedule here. Do we want this to happen daily, weekly, or monthly? I think in this particular case, we'll keep it simple, and we'll just say every day, any machines that don't have Google Chrome, we want to make sure they get it installed. So we'll just say 9 a.m. CST, that's fine. This will just run indefinitely. It's never going to end. And then we'll go over to targets on the left-hand side. Now, this is where we have a mixture of static and dynamic elements. We have organizations and devices, and this is a static selection that's going to stay this way until you come in here and change that selection. We also have the option of a group, and this is the dynamic element where we can say, hey, Ninja, you do the heavy lifting of determining who should run this automation. And in this case, it's determined by the search parameters that we've entered. So it has to not have Chrome, it has to be online, and it has to be either a Windows desktop or a Windows laptop in Ninja. And so if we apply all those, we can see all the various targets that we have here. In this case, I probably don't care about any of these other ones. I just want to use my dynamic group because that's going to capture everybody who I actually want to install Chrome on. And then we can go ahead and save that. And would have to authenticate here in order to confirm that I am who I say I am when I'm taking a high risk action like deploying a task. I'll make a quick note here separate from installing applications. This type of workflow can be used for anything that we have filters for. So let's say you want to run across only a certain architecture. Maybe you want to run across only machines that have been online for a certain amount of time. Or we have the custom fields, which essentially allows you to introduce any potential metric that you can script. I noticed in here somebody says, "Can a group be created for a Windows service?" And the answer is no, not yet. We are endeavoring towards that, but there's no service filter currently. However, that's a 4-line PowerShell script where you can write a list of services on a machine into a custom field, and then base your search criteria off of the text that's contained inside of that custom field. And actually, fortunately, we already have a script for that in the dojo here, in case anybody has not seen this one. Right there, writing a list of services into a custom field. I do not know if I can drop this in the chat, so maybe Robin might be able to help me out there, or Jonathan. I'll Slack that to you guys. So now we have a set and forget automation to install software. However, you might have noticed that there is a limitation of this. First of all, is in how frequently you can run this. You can only run it as frequently as once per day. The other limitation is that it's only going to run on devices that are online at the time that the automation is scheduled. So if it's offline, it's going to miss that, and you're going to have to hope that it's online for the subsequent run of that particular task. So what are some ways that we can alleviate this? What if we need to be faster? What if we need more immediacy? We're going to go ahead and actually move this into the policy realm. So we'll go into our policies here. Now you'll see we have our conditions. Conditions are what allows you to create your alerts and then raise tickets. But you also have the ability to respond to any of these conditions that trigger with a script. And so if I add a condition in here, I can say if a particular piece of software does not exist, I can go ahead and type in the name of that application. I am using asterisks as wildcards so that I'm finding anybody who happens to have Chrome in the application title. You don't have to do that, but it seems appropriate in this case to make sure I don't miss any slightly different name. So now I have a condition. This will create an alert saying, hey, Chrome is missing from this device, but we don't really care about the alert. What I care about is responding or triggering a script to run in an automated fashion whenever Chrome is not detected. And so in this case, I'll go ahead and say, all right, well, we're going to respond to the absence of Chrome on the device with the installer for Google Chrome. So this is a great way to kind of have that immediate response. I actually would recommend maybe a slightly different way for doing this for some of your security software. So specifically, if you're deploying antivirus or some other security software onto your endpoints, you might want to monitor that as a service. And so we can say if this doesn't exist for a particular service, let's say CrowdStrike is not installed. We'll say that service is not present on this machine. We'll get that alert after 3 minutes. We can then go ahead and run the script to install CrowdStrike in this particular case. And the reason for this is closed loop alerting. So right here, you'll see the auto reset functionality with when no longer met, which is Ninja taking an active look at the root cause of the condition. And when that is resolved, it'll reset the alert for you and take it off the dashboard so you don't have to worry about it. We don't have this for software quite yet. We are going to make all of our conditions completely closed loop, and that's a big project for this year. We already have some of those in our 5.7 release with processes and event IDs, and we'll continue to expand that out over the course of this year. But if you are doing some sort of security software and you want to know immediately if somebody does not have the designated security software like CrowdStrike or Sophos, Gravity Zone, SentinelOne, we can go ahead and use this to create completely closed loop alerting for Ninja ticketing or just the alerts that you see on the dashboard.
Hey Jeff, there's
Go ahead, John.
sorry, a couple questions. These come up kind of a lot, and so I thought I'd highlight them for you. This is from Kenny. We got if the machine's offline at 9 a.m., for example, for the install, does it run at the next login? Can we force it to run immediately?
No, not for scheduled tasks. So if we're looking at scheduled tasks here, because I can see this is a few minutes ago, if we're looking at scheduled tasks, there's no way to make that happen. The device has to be online at the scheduled time for that to install properly. Now, what you can do is if we go to the devices menu that we were at, and if we run a script from there, you don't have to use the up filter. You could go in here and find devices. Actually, I'll use my existing. Find a Windows workstation, eliminate the up filter. So we'll edit this and we'll say, I don't care about the up filter, just all devices. And so this includes stuff that's also offline. If you initiate the script from here, it will queue up on offline devices. So this is a way to kind of make sure that everybody gets it installed and then maybe set up the set and forget automation so that as new devices get onboarding, they also get captured and they get Chrome or whatever the desired application is installed on the machine. And yes, I am on 5.7.
Okay, and sorry, one more to interrupt you with. Jacob's asking, what about scheduling an installation that gets triggered at a log off?
So yeah, great question. In that case, I would probably actually look for the um, uh, event ID, perhaps for a log off event. That would really be the only way for us to trigger on that. The difficulty is this is kind of hard to combine with the presence of the software or not. So this is probably going to go ahead and just run anytime somebody logs off, regardless of whether or not they have the software or not. So it's not a really clean solution, but if you did want to trigger something based purely off of a log off, the only way I can think to do it would be to monitor for the event ID for log offs. And there are some other options here. We're looking at the conditions so far, and I'm looking at the conditions primarily as a way to stay in compliance. And the reason why I bring up security software or antivirus is because you usually have to have those things installed on devices. And so if it's not installed, you want to know about it immediately. And so in this case, with a condition, you get a potential ticket that gets created or at least an alert that gets raised, and then you get the immediate response of trying to install the software, but you do have other options here. I always like to say that Ninja is flexible to what you need to do. Sometimes you have a roadblock, you might need to go over it, you might need to go around it, you might need to go through it, you might need to tunnel under it. And Ninja provides a lot of the different ways for you to attack the problems that you're seeing. Case in point, if we go to scheduled automations, you also have the ability to have your Google Chrome or whatever other installer pushed on this schedule. So let's take out the recurring ones. We might want to run it just once at a specified time. We might want to run it once immediately. This is a very powerful scheduling option. This is going to run once on every online device. It'll wait for any offline device to come back online, and then it'll run on that device. And it will also run on any new devices to join the policy. So as you have new devices being onboarded in the Ninja, if they join this particular policy, they're going to run that script right here. A quick note here to ensure that you don't have scripts that are stepping on each other. I usually try to consolidate the scripts that are going to run once immediately into a single script block, like right here, as opposed to having, let's say, all 5 of these that, let's say, theoretically were all running once immediately. They would all run at the same time and they might step on each other. And so if you are going to be running once immediately, I would encourage you to consolidate them into a single script block, like so here. Other options, we can do an interval option here. We can do on system startup. We can do on user login, which might be more appropriate from, I think, a question that we had earlier. Another option that I really like here is actually the none option, which might sound a bit counterintuitive because it is actually taking us back into the realm of a button press. It is something that is only going to be triggered whenever somebody actually clicks on it. But the benefit of it is that it allows you to set your parameters. So you can actually set your parameters, and then when you go to run this script at the device level from the policy section, everything's already predefined. So the configuration can be done by a higher level person here. And somebody on the help desk just goes and says, well, I'm going to run a script from a policy. I'm going to click this option, and it just runs. There's no need for the parameters or what credentials you want to run as. So it can take maybe some more complex workflows and make those a little bit more streamlined, especially if you're leveraging something like the dynamic script variables that we offer for the custom script side of the house. Now, let's talk about some troubleshooting real quick. So, we've talked about the variety of ways that you can push out applications using Ninja, but what happens when things don't quite go according to plan? Obviously, with an MSI, we mentioned that we're going to write the logs out to a particular file path, and you can retrieve that text file so that you can read up on what went wrong. Another issue is parameters. I mentioned earlier that if you do not enter the correct silent install parameters for an application, in all likelihood, it is going to fail. More so than that, when it runs, the process essentially hangs. Actually, I should have picked an online device, but the process hangs. And so if I were to run Audacity as an installation and I did not use the very silent parameter, when I go to run that, I'm going to run it as system. It's going to hang indefinitely. After I think 3 hours, Ninja will go ahead and time it out. And so you'll see it disappear from the dashboard, but the backend process is still running on the machine because we started it and nobody ever exited out of it. So in that case, what we can do here, if you do not use the proper parameter on a device when it installs, and then you're trying to run the installer again, and you're saying, "Hey, this still isn't working," but I'm entering the right parameter now. What I'd encourage you to do is look at the task manager here and see if you can find the process name of the installer, and you can then kill it from this section here. I ran into this issue where I did not have I had a package that was not installing silently. And so I came in here and I saw 6 different line items for the process that were all running, and it was preventing me from successfully installing quietly after I'd fixed my parameter. This also is fixed with a reboot, but if you do have this particular issue, this is a quick and easy way to just kill all the processes so that you can then attempt a uh, deployment using the proper parameters. Let's talk about one other workaround, and then I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions. Um, we often get asked about sort of transferring files in bulk to devices, and our answer is typically always to use dedicated blob storage. But if you did want to deploy files out that are not EXEs and that are not MSIs to devices, you do have a sort of workaround that we can do using the install application script, which is using a self-extracting EXE. You can essentially use something like 7-zip to go ahead and zip up files that you want to deploy to a device. And you can actually create that as a self-extracting installer. And so when you upload that, whatever files are contained in that exe just get unzipped whenever you execute it on the device. And then you can use the pre and post script to actually start managing files and where they should go. I've used this in the past for someone who did not really have an exe or MSI installer. They were essentially zip files that were managed and installed all using scripts. And so this ended up being the way for us to go ahead and move out files in bulk to all our various devices. So that's not really a standard operating procedure, but it is a nice workaround if you have a need to get devices, get files out to all your various devices, kind of from one centralized point to your many distributed endpoints. And with that, I think I have covered most of how to deploy software like a Ninja. Hopefully, I did not miss anything. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and I am happy to attempt to answer those.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Um, Yeah, there was a couple that came up. We've gotten some good comments for, of course, adding to the wish list and everything. Ben, I see you. So we'll definitely be making note of that. One, I guess, quick question, and I'm a little uncertain of. Maybe we might need some clarification here, but this last comment that came in: is there a central location for the timings of Ninja inner workings? Example, a script that will time out after 3 hours.
I don't think we have a central location for all our various timings, but I'll say that timeout after 3 hours is not applicable to just installers and the install application script. It's applicable to any scripts that you run through Ninja. Um, so yeah, there's no, I don't think we have a central location for all our various timings, but
Yeah.
3 hours is pretty standard in terms of actions that you initiate when we are going to kill those processes if they time out.
So hopefully that answered that question. If not, let us know. I love I'm going to bring it on the screen because I like this title. Is there an option to have end users to run approved applications similar to old school SCCM?
So today, no, we don't have the ability to do that today. There are some kind of messy scripting things you could do to potentially make something like that work. But we have heard this particular use case and we are working on this. I do think that this is going to be something that's going to be out this year, which is the ability to have more end user self-service. We're specifically looking at the systray as a vehicle for end users to request applications and have them carried out by the Ninja agent. So yeah, that's absolutely something I expect to see this year, but nothing today.
It gives me an opportunity to give a little plug for the webinar we're going to be doing tomorrow, which is going to be talking about AI and self-service and lots of other things. I know Greg Smith, our product manager of the mobile app and some other things too, is going to be sharing some stuff around self-service, not particularly about what we're talking about here, but he's got some cool stuff to share. Yeah, Jeremy's asking if we can see third-party patching, but
I've got bad news for Jeremy, which is that I don't have the closed beta of Winget enabled in this environment. So sadly, not much to see here, but you can definitely see where you are going to see Winget based off of the source that we can see on the screen.
Yeah, and if anyone didn't catch that question and comment in the chat, obviously lots of people are asking about Winget. There's a lot of excitement there. This has been a topic of discussion in Discord, especially for a long time now. It is closed beta, as Jeff mentioned. That means the access is limited for right now while we do some more testing and everything. So it's a cool step forward, but a lot of folks are gonna have to be a little bit more patient for a little bit longer. But good stuff coming, and I always appreciate the early feedback and everything. Here's one question going back to SentinelOne, Jeff, and I'm not sure how much you've been dealing with the integration there, but he asks, now with the SentinelOne integration, is it better to utilize the integration to ensure SentinelOne is installed versus using conditions?
Yes, it is better to use the integration. I was just kind of broadly using antivirus software as an example of what you might want to use for conditions and deploying software. Unfortunately, we have built integrations with a lot of the common security providers out there. So maybe that example is not going the mileage the way that it used to.
Here's one more. Anything that you showed, would anything be significantly different on Mac?
Not significantly different. Yeah, no, I think that the process is fairly analogous to how it works on Mac OS. There could potentially be more custom scripting required for certain applications to make sure that they get installed in case it's something like a DMG. I know PKGs, kind of similar to MSIs, tend to be more standardized. And so it's, I think, in my opinion, easier to push out a PKG than it would be a DMG.
Oh, I love this question. Is Jeff in Discord? Is he in the Discord?
As of about an hour ago, yes, I am in the Discord.
We got him. Amazing. Yeah. So we'll make sure that you're have the appropriate roles and everything, and that people can start tagging you. And then breakout trading, we need more macOS scripts in the template library, please and thanks. We hear you there too.
There may be some new scripts coming out shortly. I don't want to say too much, but the template library could be getting an expansion.
I think there's a webinar coming up on that too. Awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much. We'll see if anyone else has maybe one or two other questions here. Like I mentioned at the top, this was a new format for us. Thanks for bearing with us at the beginning and letting us know when things are blurry and need to be changed. Jeff can add to the script share. Oh yeah, so we do have the script. Well, Jeff, you have added to the script share actually, like not yourself personally, but through us. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously the dojo is a great place for all the scripts. Jeff has added a ton there. And then, yeah, Jeff, we have in the Discord server, there is yet another script share that you can take a look at. RIP, Jeff.
Seeing a lot of warnings in the chat here.
It's fine. They listen, it's a great place. Everyone is very lovely, as you can see here in the chat. I don't know why they're trying to scare you. There are some memes. We may make fun of you a little bit, but I know
I'm
you
pretty
can
shameless.
Yeah, you're gonna toss it right back. Okay. Audience, would love your feedback. We've got a schedule that will actually drop later this week. I need to sync with Robin and Brittany first. But we have kind of been talking to some folks, and we have developed a list of ideas for more streams like this. And a lot of them are going to be absolutely Ninja focused. And others are going to be a little bit more broad. Concerning PowerShell, for example. Also getting into things like how to build a home lab like a Ninja, how to like freshen up your resume like a Ninja, things like that. So we've got a lot planned. We want to share them with you, and we would love for you to help us prioritize and schedule. We want to give you all what you want. So hopefully this was helpful. The recordings are now going to be available on YouTube for posterity, and so you'll be able to see all those. But if there's any ideas that anyone has in terms of feedback of how these could be better, not just live, but also after the fact too, what kind of formats would be good if you're sharing these things with your team for training purposes and things like that, any kind of feedback would be awesome. But with that, Jeff, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you're going to be free to get off some sales calls and do more of this stuff.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it too. No, that's I don't scare easy. Hopefully nobody takes that as a challenge.
Yeah, too late. All right. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you, everybody. We'll hang out. And if there's any other last questions, I guess maybe you can still hang out on the YouTube and stream and put them there. You can also hop back over into Discord, and I'll keep an eye on the live chat there. Oh, okay. Rad Skateboarding Limited, because your name is so cool. You got this one. Like you did like a pop shove it right into this one. Okay. Is there a way to have applications auto updating so the one install application can stay up to date?
So the best way to do that is actually going to be to reference a link. So for example, I know, going back once again to the tired example of Google Chrome, I know that there is a public MSI link that Google Chrome has. And so I can go ahead and actually point my install application to the link itself, and Google will keep it updated for me. So I never have to worry about maintaining that. If not every developer is quite so generous with that, you might need to use separate blob storage to accomplish something like that. So you didn't have to come into Ninja and modify it if you wanted to make it more centralized, even in the install application library. But yeah, using a link from the developer, I think, is a very good way to ensure that the onus is on the developer to make sure that the application is the full version and up to date.
Yeah, and Rad Skateboarding, right on. Thank you for asking that question. And I believe there's a script in the Discord script share that David Spoonar put in there that may help you with that. But I'll go in and confirm. All right, this time we'll end this for real. Jeff, thank you so much again for taking time, and thank you everybody for hopping in.
Bye everyone. Take care.
All right, see ya.